Hey, we're going to take a few minutes and talk about conflict with our teens. And if you have teenagers, you know that part of what you have is conflict with them. So here's the deal. You got to keep in mind that your teens live in a very emotional state right now. They're going through adolescence. Their world is very emotionally charged. And so when you suspect them of having done something wrong or have evidence that they've done something wrong, and you get worked up emotionally into kind of this conflictual energy and you come at them, typically what happens is that the combination of their emotional state plus your negative emotional energy ends up in a really bad place. And if you're like me, you end up handing out punishments and punitive actions, oftentimes based on their reaction to your confrontation, right? So, and another part of that is I can't tell you how many times I've ended up punishing my kids and later on realized it was not in line with what they did, and also that I ended up punishing myself. And so the first thing you want to do before you have a difficult conversation with your kids on a topic where you think they've done something that they shouldn't have done, or even if you have evidence, is you want to bring your emotional energy down. So talk to a spouse, talk to a friend, talk to somebody that's going to help you bring your kind of that conflictual energy down to a neutral position to where you can have, more of a rational conversation about it. All right, I'm going to teach you 3 phrases that once you get in there and you start having these conversations, these are 3 phrases that will open things up for dialogue and interaction instead of just conflict and argument. And the first one is, I'm confused. So the phrase is, I'm confused. I actually learned this from a guy who was a turnaround specialist in corporate America, and he used it beautifully and taught me about this one, and I was like, hey, I can use that with my kids, that'll work. So it's when you have an understanding with the kids about how things are going to be, but they don't seem to have gone that way. So it could be that your child said, hey, I'm going to go spend the night at my best friend's house. But you suspect that they may have gone and done some other things, like gone out with friends or something like that. So when you see them the next time, you've worked yourself into a neutral energy state, right? You're not in that high conflicted energy mode. And they come in and you're like, how things go? Do you have a good time? Yeah, I had a great time. Hey, I'm a little confused though. Like, I thought you were just gonna go stay at your friend's house. And then you just pause. Let that there. Now, if they didn't go anywhere else, they'll say, but that's what I did. Like they'll be very matter of fact, well, that's exactly what I did. If they did other things, typically, now you may have a child that can ace this stuff, right? But typically what happens if they did do something else, they're thinking, how did he find out about that? Who told him? What does he know? And so they begin to kind of confess as little as possible to get in too much trouble, right? So they go, well, yeah, we were there, but then some friends came by, so we just went to the mall. But all we did was go to the mall. We just went to the movie. And then you can just kind of go, oh. And then you address this. You go, hey, but it's really important when you tell me that you're going to your friend's house that that's where you are. And if something changes, you need to let me know. Like, why didn't you let me know you're going to do that? Well, I was afraid that you would just say no. Well, you're probably right. I would have probably said no. Or I might have said yes, but you won't know because you didn't give me a shot. However, because you didn't tell me the truth, next time you ask, you're not going to be able to do that, or whatever's the reasonable way for you to handle that, right? So that's the first one, I'm confused. The second one is similar, and it is in settings where you have evidence that they have done some things wrong, and you want to be able to communicate why those things were important. And that particular phrase is, you know when, right? You know when. So you go in and you'll say the same thing. They're out with their friends and you think that they were out drinking when they're not supposed to be drinking. And you say, hey, when you're out with your friends and somebody decides they want to stop and get something to drink, or when they grab something out of their parents' liquor cabinet or whatever, and so you just kind of lead in with that. And here's what you'll notice happens most of the time with your teens, is that when you lead in with you know when, their head, they'll start nodding. They're getting on board with you. Yeah, okay, yeah. And what you want to do is you just want to coach them through that. Hey, when you're out with your friends and they're drinking that kind of stuff, or one that honestly has come up in a lot of conversations lately, is when you're out with some friends and somebody decides to start smoking pot and you're in the car and you're driving around. And they're kind of nodding. You say, did you know that if you're in the car and an officer pulls you over and smells it, he can arrest all of you if nobody owns up to it being theirs? And that's kind of a shock factor, right? So you're able to teach your kids something in that with you know when. And so you teach them that whole thing, and typically it really does open up for some good conversations. And then the last one is when you have them dead to rights. You absolutely know that they have done something wrong, but you want to be able to communicate with them versus fight with them. And what you do, instead of coming in with the facts of evidence that you have, you say, hey, if you're ever in a situation, and then you name out the situation best. If you're ever online and you come across some adult websites, and when, like I said, you got evidence of doing that, here's what you need to know about that. When you say, so you come at that, but you're giving them some grace, right? You're not making it about the conflict, you're making it about what you want to communicate. Because it's an opportunity to teach them things like, hey, the stuff you see online, you need to know that that's like not realistic, right? That's kind of like watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians and thinking that's how life is supposed to be. So, you know, that you're skewing your views of what human sexuality is. There's, you know, all these things that you can teach, and you just come in from the if you ever, right? Hey, if you're ever in this situation where you run across this, you need to know these things. So all of these things are designed to bring down the level of conflict in the conversation and to open up communication. And that's really the secret. That's really the secret to navigating difficult conversations with your teenager, is lowering the level of conflict and opening up lines of communication. Because our goal is like you may have this issue with them not being where they're supposed to be, but what you want to do is learn how to communicate to them, with them, to where if they really end up jammed up in a difficult situation or something later on, that you have created the type of communication patterns to where y'all could talk about things and find solutions together. So I'm Emmett Jones. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, ask that you like and share it with other people that you may know. And you never know who's in your kind of social media feed there that needs to hear it. So my goal is just to help people out with the things I've been fortunate enough to learn over time. Hope you have a great day.